As you approach the town, something feels off. The last time you visited, the streets were filled with people. You could smell baked goods from the shops and hear the laughter of children running through the streets. Now, nothing. Complete silence. Where did everyone go? Suddenly, the sky goes dark as a massive shadow blocks out the sun. The shadow swoops by and with a flap of its wings, nearly knocks you to the ground.
Welcome to another Dragon episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, where you never know what you're gonna get.
Hello, I'm Pepperina, and with me is Casey, and today we're joined by Miaca for this episode called Dragon Ourselves into 2025.
This episode covers all the things about D&D dragons that dungeon masters, new and old, will need to know.
I get asked this question all the time as the Queen of Dragons. And so I thought I'd ask you two, because I haven't really discussed dragons at all with either of you very much. So I need to know, what is your favorite dragon?
I'll go
one?
first. So, if I can be honest, for me, I don't know too much about dragons, and I haven't really interacted with too many dragons in our campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But in the campaign I'm in with Casey, I have sort of like a pet dragon, and it's a sapphire dragon, I think. And I named her Nightmare. But as far as like yeah. And as far as like interaction, there wasn't a lot of interaction because like she was basically just born. And then of course I've got thrusted off into an adventure. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say Sapphire.
Sapphire, that's a good one.
Nice. Miaca, in our last, no, I can't tell you because you're not supposed to know anything. Damn it.
Ooh.
How did I caught myself?
Okay, but tell me later.
Yeah. This probably won't be much of a surprise. I also have, I know a fraction of what you know, Pepperina, about dragons, which is why I think probably you're going to see a lot of me and Miaca on these episodes. We're going to learn. But for many years, many people have heard about Acra, my character that I played many years ago now. And she was a black dragonborn. And so I have to say I know the most about black dragons and love them because they're just terrifying and awesome at the same time.
Yeah. Agreed. Black is my favorite. I think followed by blue.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Black is just, to me, like the dragoniest of dragons. Like, they truly do not give a fuck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they are just going to do what they want to do.
Love it.
Yeah.
And so where we're going to start is actually outside of D&D with dragons from around the world. There is a lot. Mm-hmm. Starting off with European dragons, there is very similar themes with different areas, different dragons around the world. For European dragons, they're often depicted as large, fire-breathing, winged creatures. They are typically seen as dangerous, hoarding treasure, terrorizing villages, and they symbolize chaos, evil, and greed. They're really common in medieval folklore and legends, and also frequently antagonistic, like with knights and heroes tasked to go slay the dragon. And so when you look at like the type of body they have as well, it's usually reptilian and scaly with like long, sharp claws, and they're very menacing. There are different examples of specific dragons in Norse mythology, Welsh mythology, Christian legend, English folklore, Scottish folklore, English, and like many in English folklore as well. One example is like the red dragon of Wales, which is even on their flag. And so this is like a symbol of Wales and is famously featured on the the Historia Brittonum. Oh my God, I can't speak. The red dragon is a symbol of Wales and is famously featured in the Historia Brittonum, where it fights the white dragon. And in this one, it represents strength, unity, and is said to foreshadow the victory of King Arthur. So it's like there are direct stories that are part of the history, and then there's also the folklore pieces. So there's just a wealth in European history for dragons and folklore. But moving on to Asian dragons, this takes a slightly different perspective, where the Asian dragons symbolize wisdom, power, and good fortune. They are also represented as like long serpentine creatures, but with no wings. And they are associated with water, rain, and agriculture, like, for example, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean dragons. And in Chinese mythology, they are benevolent, often linked to emperors and prosperity. And they are also frequently portrayed physically with antler-like horns, long beards, and lion-like features. And I think many might know just from Eastern traditions, cultures, and festivals, the symbol of the dragon as well, like, for example, Chinese New Year. And again, we have so many different examples of specific Asian dragons from all the different mythologies. For example, we have Naga from Southeast Asian mythology. Naga dragons are important in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Southeast Asian mythology, particularly in India, Cambodia, and Thailand. And they're often depicted as serpent-like dragons and associated with water and fertility. And in Buddhist tradition, Naga dragons are protectors of the Buddha and are considered guardians of treasure and wisdom. I could go on and on about this, but there's so much, and it's really cool. You could easily go down a rabbit hole like I did with this.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I listed too many. I have to pull back.
I know, when I was looking at the breakdown, I told Dylan, I was like, Casey really has the hardest research here because it's so many different ones. I was like, I don't have to really research much at all. Nostalgia lives in my brain, but I would have to research your section.
Yeah, and I kind of left my extra notes in for you, Peps, because I thought, well, I'm covering way too much, but you will probably do the deep dive of just wanting to read the rest that I talk about. So there you go.
Thank you.
All right, so we also have dragons in pop culture, which I think this is what I know the most about. That lives in my brain. So in fairy tales, dragons are often depicted as the evil creature that needs to be defeated, and it comes up in the classic stories of Rapunzel and the Brothers Grimm. Lots of times they're holding a princess captive or guarding treasure or living in a cave, and heroes need to go seek it and outwit it and kill it.
Yeah, the Shrek timeline. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
They just need a donkey to come love them. So.
I am actually kind of excited about the Shrek reboot. Lots of people are really upset about it, but I saw a couple images from it, and I'm like, I think it'll be great.
Yeah, I'm like, it'll be cute. I mean, yeah, people are really up in arms about it.
Yeah, sidebar. Anyway.
Yeah.
We also see dragons in pretty famous books, including Tolkien. In The Hobbit, Smaug is a prime example of a European-style dragon where he's greedy and destructive. In the Silmarillion, there's dragons that are ancient, powerful, and associated with evil. So these ones are more that they are a symbol of chaos and darkness. They're bad. They do need to be destroyed or they will destroy the world. So that's one way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And Game of Thrones, where dragons are very rare, they're powerful, and they're a symbol of the Targaryen rule. And so we see Daenerys Targaryen being the mother of dragons who which allows her to, have hatch. That's the word.
Yep.
She is able to hatch her 3 dragon eggs, and that helps her rise in power. And so it represents strength, destruction, and ultimately the change in the world of Westeros. And they're generally seen as feared, except for the Targaryen bloodline. They are able to ride them and befriend them, and they become their companions, even though if you still piss them off, they will just destroy you without a blink.
Yeah.
but
They will
there's
still eat you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We also see them in Harry Potter, where dragons are definitely considered highly magical creatures and very, very dangerous, but very valuable. They come up in the Triwizard Tournament, where they have to not kill the dragons, but defeat the dragon in some way, which was, I don't know, I love Harry Potter as well. So that was a very exciting book to read about the dragons, like the Hungarian Horntail. And yeah, it's that similar storyline though, of someone having to have the bravery and skill of a wizard to go and defeat the dragon. I'm almost done, I swear. There's so many. And then there's the story of the movie. I don't think it was ever a book. I could be wrong though, but How to Train Your Dragon, which was immensely popular.
Mm-hmm.
And that depicts dragons as intelligent, loyal, and having unique personalities. And then it's the focus on the relationship and bonding between dragon and human, with Toothless. And dragons in this movie, I'll call it a movie, were kind of all different shapes and sizes, and they had different fire breathing abilities, and then they were magically connected to light powers. And so it also had a bit of a different theme for their dragons. It was more coexistence, mutual understanding, and breaking that prejudice of dragons being just purely evil and needing to be destroyed or feared.
Mm-hmm.
I think with those, I'm sorry, Casey, but I know with How to Train Your Dragon, I think they're books, and there's a huge fandom that I've learned.
Yeah, I know my daughter was super into those.
So they are books. Okay.
Not the books. She was super into the show and the movies and the story in general.
I think this year they're coming out with a live action remake of the animation of the animated movie. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are pumped for that as well. But a little bit of lore, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I'll definitely be seeing that one with my daughter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't catch this one in terms of binging book reads. It was purely the movie that I ended up watching with my nieces and nephew and sister, and they're very great. Classic emotional roller coaster, though. I'm this is horrible. Why are kids watching this? And so there's also Dragonheart, and I don't know how Dragonheart, the movie, impacted the two of you, but this was a different kind of emotional roller coaster. But this movie hit me hard. It was huge at the time. I forget when it came out, but it was a long time ago. But so Dragonheart is the story of a dragon named Draco who forms a bond with a human knight. And it's that classic, the knight should destroy the dragon, but then they end up, bonding, because Draco is portrayed as a wise, compassionate, and heroic dragon versus an evil dragon in the end. And so it had the theme of redemption, self-sacrifice, and that bond. And oh man, I will never forget that movie. It was just and maybe, I don't know. It was just, I think in the times that it was made, the cinematography was just amazing for the dragon. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I remember watching it, but it was so long ago. I don't remember very many details, but I do remember loving it when I was little.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen it. So
Oh, you should. You and Adam should watch it because it's a good one.
hmm
And then we have another film that's pretty heavily focused on dragons, and it's Reign of Fire. Now, this one I don't remember super well, but I know I watched it at some point. But Reign of Fire is a post-apocalyptic film where dragons have re-emerged and they dominate the earth. And it depicts the dragons as fierce predators that have caused the downfall of civilization. So this is like the true evilness of dragons. And so this movie focuses on like then humanity's struggle to survive and then fight back against the dragons, but they have ultimately like destroyed the world. So it's like the aftermath. Yeah, and again, we could go on and on and on. There's Aragon, there's Shrek, there's the never-ending story where like Falcor, the luck dragon, is hope and good fortune. Never-ending story will forever like it scarred my childhood, like And then there's even like Dragon Ball Z, which I know nothing about, but I know those listening, many will know a lot about that. So I will end it there, but like I love that we have so much lore, folklore, and history around the world about dragons. And it just, I think it just brings a lot to the creativity of like what we get to do. So I'll leave it there and I'll hand it back over to you, Peps, for D&D.
D&D dragons. See, in my head, as you're talking, I'm like, well, that one's really a wyvern, and that one's clearly a metallic dragon, and that one's a worm.
Yeah, we could deep dive on the terminology and how messed up all that is.
I had to bite my tongue so hard when you were talking about Game of Thrones that those are really wyverns and she's not the mother of dragons, but I digress. And I would like to add one to that list. That for me felt like the most D&D feeling dragon that I've seen in recent films, and that is Damsel. I don't know if either of you have seen it. It's got Millie Bobby Brown in it.
Oh yes, I did.
I've heard of it, and I do plan on watching it at some point.
The rest of the movie's so, but the dragon they did very well. So shout out to that dragon.
Yeah, that was a good one. And they were like an evil kind of greedy dragon, but there was the communication piece.
Yeah.
Love that one. I think that was 2024. It was very...
I think so. Yeah, it was more
recent. Yeah.
After learning about all of those dragons, D&D dragons are pretty unique in that they're all different. And this is really the thing I love most about D&D dragons, that no two of them are the same. They all have unique personalities, quirks, and desires. Unlike a lot of the ones we see in pop culture that are just greed and destruction, right? So we get different themes with them all. So I'm going to go through and give you both a brief description of the 15 main dragons, the chromatic, the metallic, and the gem dragons, to give you both a little bit of an idea of like what I'm referring to as how they're all unique. So I'll start with chromatic. First is the red. They believe they are the best of all dragons, therefore of all creatures, and they are ruthless and unforgiving. And this is really the dragon I think we see the most in pop culture. Then we have blue, which seeks control of territories and people. They collect followers like treasure, and if they believe you to be important, they want you as their own. So they're more about collecting powerful people versus powerful treasure. Black is the most sadistic of all dragons. While other dragons will kill you, none will enjoy it as much as the black dragons will. Green are the most manipulative of the chromatic dragons. They love getting into the heads of lesser beings and toying with them. They are less likely to fight you, but only because they prefer to trick you into harmful situations that they can sit back and enjoy. And white are the most primal of the dragons. They live to hunt and survive in the icy tundras they live in. To white dragons, you're nothing more than a snack. Getting into metallic, gold are the most powerful of the metallic dragons. They strive to make the world a better place for all. They will use their power to bend fate towards a brighter future. Silver, these dragons are all about courage and fairness. They want to preserve peace and love, the ambitions of heroes. Brass are the absolute extrovert of dragons, like they are out there talking to the people. They are by far the friendliest and will sit down for hours exchanging stories. My favorite bit of their lore is that they collect sentient items, so they always have someone to talk to and consider them their friends. Bronze, they want to help you reach your greatest potential. They will be the ones to help civilizations thrive, while also preserving the history of their past. Now, in past editions, I do believe they were written to be a little more battle strategy, and more about justice and keeping up the law than I saw in the new Monster Manual, which I really enjoyed, so I wanted to add that in there. Copper, if you need a good laugh, go talk to a copper dragon. They love humor and jokes and just want to make people laugh. If any of you are familiar with Impractical Jokers, they're copper dragons. Like that's their vibe. Honestly, with the new descriptions of the metallic dragons in the Monster Manual, I found it a little hard to get a good idea of how to play them different. I think they could have done a better job describing different aspects of being good. Like a lot of it is they just want to make the world better. And like I think in past editions they did a little bit better of a job describing them differently and giving them more personality than in this Monster Manual. Getting into the gym dragons, which are in Fizbans, we didn't get them in the new Monster Manual. Amethyst is the most powerful of the gym dragons. They have a vast understanding of the multiverse and how to manipulate it. They strive to understand all sides of everything so they can counsel those who don't. Sapphire are fierce and territorial. These dragons are always ready for a war to happen, though they do often form alliances with gnomes, which I, of course, love.
I want to listen to your gnome episodes because I've heard about the gnomes.
Yeah. The thing I love closest to dragons is probably gnomes. So emeralds are very curious, but also introverted. So they will often disguise themselves to observe the world around them without being bothered themselves. So they want to know what you're up to, but they don't want you to know that they're there or talk to them. Crystals are the friendliest of the gym dragons. Their radiant energy makes them little balls of light, both physically and in personality. And topaz is the opposite of the crystal. These guys are Debbie Downers. They know you are mortal and will soon decay back into the earth, so you are kind of pointless to them. They do have my favorite quirk in that they absolutely hate being wet, but are good swimmers. They live on coasts, and their favorite food is giant squids. Which I love, just shows that just because you are good at something doesn't mean you have to enjoy doing it.
Oh, not be relating to the topaz dragon. Literally me.
So I'm not going to go into all of the standalone dragons because Adam would kill me having to edit a 7-hour recording, and I am trying my best to keep this as short as I can make it. But a shout out to some of my faves, the Moonstone Dragon, the Deep Dragon, and the Dragon Turtle, and a fuck you to Lunar Dragons. If you want to know why, go listen to that episode.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, so get back to my place. Okay, so that is our sort of base dragons. And like I sort of mentioned with the dragons throughout the world, as I was identifying them as wyverns and worms and different things, in D&D, the differences between dragons, wyverns, drakes, and worms. So dragons we know as having wings. They are very magical. They talk, and they have 4 legs along with their wings. Wyverns have only 2 legs with their wings. They don't talk. They're not super magical. just sort of a lesser version and a more wild version of your dragons. Drakes don't have wings, but they do have 4 legs, and are used really more as like guards, right? You see like the guard drake. And worms are more of our like Chinese dragon that doesn't have legs or wings and just sort of fly magically. An example of this is really the solar dragon, which is classified as a dragon in D&D, but they have that worm-like body when they float through space. Now, one of the most important things with dragons is their hordes, right? That's their whole thing. Every dragon has a horde. And Fizban's really taught us that they have multiple hordes. They don't just have one. It's not just one ancient dragon sitting atop one, volcano with their one massive horde. They have several, and they are scattered. They can be hundreds of miles apart. And each of those areas they believe to be their regions and their territories. And the older they get, the more hordes they have. And they need those hordes to be as big as possible to age. In Fizban's, they talk about they have to have a certain amount of hordes, and they have to be worth a certain value in order for them to like age up and gain that power. So the hordes of the dragons are really what they get their power and magic from. If you look at all of them, and we talk about their minions, and the dragons are never going to be alone, right? Like when you get to their lair, they're never going to just be the dragon. Even the ones that like prefer seclusion and don't want to talk to people, they are still going to have followers because they are these powerful beings. So the obvious ones are kobolds and cult members, right? Like every dragon is going to have a group of kobolds that worships them, and they're going to have a group of cult members that worship them. I think looking into Fizban's and like the other creatures in the backer is a really good idea when you want to look at other minions that they can have. I would go with every dragon has a different elemental part of them, and going with different elemental things that come from different planes of existence that they can open up and they come out to them, especially with the older and more ancient that dragons get. Now, dragons do believe they are the best of the best, right? But they have a lot of enemies, but their like biggest enemies is giants.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know as much about giants or that whole fight as much as Casey probably does.
I might know a little bit more.
You probably know a little bit more about that than I do. Is there anything you know about like that fight or war?
In the giant lore, they mostly are really selfish and just talk about how much they dislike the ordning and order of the giants themselves. Mm-hmm. And how much they dislike being where they're at. Like the lower they get, the more they think they should be higher.
Yeah.
And so that's actually what the lore focuses on mostly in the D&D books. They don't you have to dig to find where they actually talk about the hate between giants versus dragons. Yeah,
it's not really like super in there, but from what I read, it looked like, and there was a couple different versions, but from what I read, it looked like giants were here first, and then dragons came and just sort of took over.
Yeah.
And giants were like, what the fuck?
Yeah. But also, fuck you. You breathe you have a breath weapon, and you're gonna wipe us out, so fine.
All right, so as if like your ancient dragon isn't scary enough, there are also great worms that were introduced in Fizban's, and they have these for chromatic, metallic, and gem. And what a great worm is when all of the echoes of the dragon in the multiverse. So in this theory, there are several versions of the same dragon throughout the multiverse of D&D, and they have to be absorbed by one dragon and all come together to sort of create this great worm. So it's a huge process. They're super scary to fight. If you want like an even bigger bad than your ancient dragon for your players to fight, look into the great worms because they are terrifying.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and it's also just a great like campaign idea to have to go to like multiverse hopping to try and like stop this from happening and finding all the echoes of the same dragon and like how that varies and differs in each universe. So that's, I mean, you could create an entire campaign just out of a great worm, really. Another fun thing about dragons that we like to talk about in our past episodes is their eggs and how each egg differs like per dragon and like what that would look like and what kind of magic you could get off of pieces of the shell, and like they're all so unique that like definitely play with that. If your players come across a dragon egg, it's not just gonna be an egg, right? It's gonna have some sort of like crazy magic and extra things to it.
Yeah, I remember in my first campaign, I found a dragon egg and I had to like hire someone that could like hatch the dragon egg. That's what Adam came up with. And I was so impatient. I'm like, just hatch already. Like it was a whole thing. Like, and I had to like spend a lot of money for it too. So
I bet. Yeah. What was it in the end?
Oh man, I don't even remember. I'll have to look back at my old notes. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. Well, I know that like one of Adam's favorite things is the eggs. Like in the previous episodes that we've done, he really loves the eggs, which is why I gave him a dragon egg mini at your guys' wedding.
Yeah.
Like if anybody needs this mini, it's Adam. For sure. All right, so as we've talked about, like there's so many different things with each of these, but like all dragons sort of have the same, like in D&D, they do have a similar theme, right? They're all very powerful. Even the good ones, if you catch them on a bad day, will eat you. Like a gold dragon will kill you if they are grumpy enough that day, right? They all have layers, they all have hordes, they all take over territories. It's just sort of a difference of how they do that. So like the chromatics will do that by force. They will come into an area and just kill everything, or like you either bend the knee or I burn your city down, right? And so they will take over their territories that way. A metallic dragon is going to work with those cities more. They are going to offer protection and share the wealth a bit more than your chromatic dragons are. And the thing that really sets gym dragons apart is their psionics, right? They all have that like psychic ability. And also where the chromatic and metallics breath weapons and powers come from more elemental things. I like that the gym dragons are different, that they get like force and radiant and necrotic. You know, they get the things we don't see in other dragons. So like I sort of mentioned with like the wyverns and drakes and worms, we have our base dragons that we think of, but we also have the sort of lesser dragons also. And I do believe the monster manual the new monster manual opens that up and makes more things like the dragon category. And kobolds finally get to be dragons, which I know that they love. Oh. I love that for them. So if you really want to dive into other draconic creatures, I would get into Fizbans. You have your dragonelles, you have your dragon blood oozes, you have all of your standalone dragons like the dragon spider, you have, you know, your space dragons in Space Jammer, right? That's a had a brain fart there and what's that's called. But like each book has their own like dragon version, right? Or like things in it. So you could do a very deep dive. If you want to use a dragon in your campaign, it does not have to be one of these 15 that I went over. There are so many more, and they all have their personalities. They all have their like space in the landscape. So yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I have. I'm gonna let Miaca talk for a little bit so I can catch a breath and take a drink of water.
Did such a great job. It's hard to follow that up.
Yes.
All right. So I guess what I'm going to cover is just kind of like a recap and like a refresher. I'm sure like you've touched on a lot of this like in past episodes, Pepperina. So all right, here we go. So customizing dragons is a thing, and it's pretty fun. You can customize the stat block to reflect a dragon's personality. Traits such as like languages is an option. Like most dragons speak Draconic, but they can learn to speak Common and probably a whole bunch of other languages because they live so long. So why not, right? Their skills can reflect like particular interests, or they can just have a like high proficiency rating on one of the skills. So of course those are kind of like a given. I thought this was cute. Spells, you can have like a dragon like only cast warlock spells, or they may have like a huge interest in like druid spells or something like that. So that's cute that they like they may have like a favorite, and you may catch them like casting those particular types of spells. And I thought about maybe like a dragon casting Eldritch Blast would just probably like mess up a whole town. So that would be crazy. Let's see. They can also shapeshift, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And damage absorption. The book provides an example of a red dragon not being harmed by fire damage, but they in fact become healed by fire damage. So that's pretty like wild and scary. But makes sense. So yeah, reproduction. It can vary from world to world, and I found a D10 table, and I want you both to roll on it. So basically, this helps the DMs basically determine the origin of dragon eggs. So let's roll.
Nice.
I got a 9.
I got a 10.
Ooh.
All right. Let's start with the 9. So, Dragon Conclave, 5 adult or older, and I'm reading this straight from the Fizban book, by the way. Dragon Conclave, 5 adult or older dragons of different kinds come together to create a clutch of eggs, with each giving up a bit of life energy as part of the process. This clutch of eggs hatches 5 dragons of different kinds, depending on the dragons making up the conclave. So that's interesting. And then 10 for rejuvenation. An ancient dragon voluntarily enters a deep trance and eventually dies, leaving behind a single egg. So, just ways to kind of like help build the story out and stuff like that. So it's cool.
Yeah, I like that it's not just,
Yeah, like
how everything else reproduces.
Yeah. It's like, here's a nest of eggs. Like,
Yeah.
do it,
And I always appreciate these tables. I love that they have done that because I have a different brain than many of our friends on It's a Mimic, where I do sometimes need, like, I'm like drawing blanks. I'm like, I don't know where to start, or I don't know what this is about. And so this just takes that energy out, in the sense of like, you don't know where to pull it from in your brain, and you can just look and roll. And sometimes that's enough inspiration to take off, and then you end up going like down the rabbit hole just from one dice roll and like one thing. So I love that these are in here. It just helps. It helps so much.
Oh, definitely.
I've definitely been inspired by a lot of these tables and like coming up with ideas and things.
Yeah.
Kickstart your brain.
Yeah.
So we even get one for reproduction.
Yes. There you go. So getting into half dragons now, they can be created by other dragons, usually as a way to secure minions. Sometimes they are made by accident, and we have a D6 table for that. So let's roll on the half dragon origin.
6.
3.
All right, let's start with 3. True Love's Gift. And again, you can find this in the Fizban's book. Love occasionally blossoms between dragons and creatures of other kinds, and the life bond can result in half-dragon children. Most half-dragons born of love are created as a magical gift. Aww. That's cute.
So that's the donkey and dragon.
Exactly. And it was 6, right?
Yeah.
All right, horde thieves. The horde of an older dragon is imbued with that dragon's power. Those who steal from such a horde might transform into half dragons as that power leaches into them. That's cool.
That is cool. What a twist.
Yeah.
You're like greedy rogue who goes in and steals treasure and then just slowly starts transforming into a half dragon.
Yeah.
Perfect, right? Like the drama.
And I mean, that really ties in with the, storyline of like their hordes are their magic and like they feed off of each other and they absorb the magic from their hordes and their hordes absorb the magic from them.
Yeah. And that could be a great way to reveal that to players because like I wouldn't have really known that if I hadn't done the been part of the podcast and learning all of this. Like as a player, I would have not really put that together unless we had to investigate a specific dragon and do a bunch of work on it in game. Yeah. Otherwise you wouldn't. And so you would just think, sweet, we've snuck in and we've taken the stuff. Let's get out of here. Success. Like,
Yeah, I think a lot of like people's general understanding is like, oh, they just like shiny things, but it like goes so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I was doing research, I read that like, they're like dragons are deep. Like they really are. So like again, Peps, you already basically told us everything we needed to know. But I think for those just getting started in D&D or like, you've never used a dragon before, understand that dragons are available at any level of play. Don't save them for like the end of your campaign because you think, okay, we're going to come across this big, bad evil guy. Like introduce them throughout the campaign. Familiarize your characters, not your characters, your players with them. I think, you do sort of a disservice if you just like, save them for the final tier, Yeah,
because you have the different ages and you have the different like alignments. Not all dragons are evil and you're not going to fight them all. If you come across a dragon, it's not an automatic fight. Like some of them will help you. Some of them are neutral. Some of them you can bargain with, like use them in more creative ways than the last battle.
Exactly. So here are some quick facts that I found about dragons just in general, and I thought were pretty cool. So rapid fire facts here. There are 3 main dragon families, and you talked about, all of them that could be found in the histories of the material plane, and that's chromatic, metallic, and gem dragons. Specific places of power that connect with dragons can be found across multiple worlds. For example, a place called the Sunless Citadel Dungeon. It's just kind of has a huge connection with a particular dragon. I didn't write down the name. I should have, but I didn't. Whoops. And the same goes for like specific artifacts, of course. That are associated with dragons. You can receive specific draconic feats from your DM. So an example could be heightened senses or being imbued with a dragon's intellect. I remember my first campaign with laughter. I ate a dragon heart. I think it was of a copper dragon. And I was like, yeah, I'll eat it. And then I'm like, my eyes changed colors and it was weird. But but yeah. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Their sense of territory expands as they age. So over a span of like 300 miles can hold up to like dozens of dragons. So that's pretty cool. Dragons in humanoid form have gone by the name were-dragon, which I thought was funny. A dragon's power doesn't manifest in the world until they have spent a century in the lair. Is that true, Peps? Because I read that. I know, like, I read it, but I don't know if I, like, understood what I was writing.
Yeah, so that sort of goes with the, like, they have to have a certain amount of, like, value in their horde, and that kind of thing. And they do have to, like, they have to be a certain age. They have to have a certain amount to be able to increase their power. So that's and they have to, like, spend time with those hordes and those layers to, like, get the regional effects and that kind of thing that you see, or the layer effects. And I think that really comes from like dragons are magic. Like they don't just like have the ability to cast magic. They don't like it's not oh, I learned this. They are magic. So spending that amount of time in a layer or a land their magic will seep out into that. So they can't just like, oh, I found this cave, it's my layer now, and then I'm gonna go back to my other one. Like to get that magic from them, they have to spend a certain amount of time there.
Yeah, it takes time. Okay. That's cool. I like that. And for my last fact, I found something on Eldinsur, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. The Lurker, who is an amethyst dragon who enjoys observing creatures in the world. And they made a point to say like he is obsessed with doing this. Some suspect that he has died because he's like so observant you can't even you never really know when he's observing you. So some suspect that he has died, but others believe that he is pretty much still around. And his mind is a part of a draconic like shard, like some type of weapon, which again I didn't catch the name of. I tried looking for it, but I genuinely couldn't find it in the book. But I thought that was pretty cool. So a player coming across like some type of weapon, a shard, and having it just speak to them. And I know that's happened a few times in our campaign, Casey. So yeah.
Never a dragon though. That would be
no.
That you know of.
True.
No, that makes a lot of sense because in Fizban's, the example of a draconic shard that they show you is an amethyst dragon. So I'm wondering if it is this amethyst dragon.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we did cover draconic shards in a past episode. So if anyone wants to learn more about those, that is in one of our past episodes. They're pretty cool, so I recommend listening to it.
Yep.
And it also gives that opportunity for, like, I don't know, what Miaca, when you were talking about observing creatures and the world, and it might be around, it might not. To me, that speaks to people wanting to follow and worship that, because it's the idea of like, being observed and someone's watching their good deeds and believing in something they may not know is alive or dead, but they're like cult. It's screaming cult, and ultimately like the Lurker becoming more like a deity or god to some groups. Like humans are so gullible, so I can see that being something where you came across a group who is worshiping this being that they believe is still out there and observing them, and then if you want to dig into it, you realize that it's this amethyst dragon.
He's just like sitting there, just picture him sitting there being like, y'all, I am just taking notes. y'all are like too into it.
I'm just here to watch.
Yeah.
But
that's it for my little facts section. So yeah.
All right. Well, we've covered quite a lot. So let's roll for initiative and then just chat about our inspirations and what we're feeling about dragons.
All right.
15.
14.
13.
Whoa.
Oh, okay.
Cool. I guess I have to start.
You do have to start.
Well, I think this was a perfect way to start off kind of a few episodes about dragons that we're going to see leading up through our new 5.5 books. It helped me just get the overview again, and I appreciate the notes on how it maybe they've changed the description a little bit, like you were talking about, Peps, where maybe you need to dig in a little bit more about why ones are good from like the past lore. But I do like how they have organized it, and so that we can get what we need and be inspired. I love the eggs facts I think that's where we can like drop a little nugget about a dragon and see what the players do with it. So now that we've gone through all of the different types of dragons, I think if any of those were like, ooh, that sounds really cool, like the copper dragon, it's like, all right, well, maybe you could start off with dropping a copper egg somewhere and, you know, have it styled however you want and start there to build it out. Because I also appreciate Miaca saying like bring it in throughout the campaign, not just if you found excitement in the copper dragon and you don't see it till the very end. It's like, nah, that's a shame.
Yeah.
So that's my ramble on that.
I agree with you, Casey. I find a lot of inspiration in like the whole egg situation, especially if someone like steals an egg and like, you know, the consequences of that. And I almost like the idea of like a dragon kind of turning you into like one of its minions and you don't even know what you like signed up for, and that being like a character arc. And so I kind of like that connection of like player characters and dragons kind of like meeting instead of just always fighting a dragon, like I said. So yeah, that's my little 2 cents into it.
Love it.
Yeah. I did really like and I haven't actually looked at the like reproductive table, I don't think. And so I really liked that bit that you went over, Miaca, and like I believe it was 10 that Casey rolled where like the ancient dragon just like becomes an egg. It was very time dragon for me because there's like the lore of the time dragon is that there's only really one and that they eventually turn back into an egg and hatch and then like know everything that they knew going forward. So I like that idea of like the ancient just becomes the egg and still has all of the like knowledge that it knew before, and it carries it on throughout the timeline and that. So I thought that was a really cool bit there for inspiration.
Can you imagine a like wormling that has the knowledge of an ancient dragon? Like,
I know, they'd be
what
insufferable.
an asshole.
I know.
Yep.
That's what we sort of talked about with the time dragon. Like, oh my god, this kid would be so annoying. These kids already think they know everything, but this one really does. Like,
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to add, like, which type of dragon are you two more inspired by? Like metallic, chromatic, gem.
I already said I know I relate to the topaz dragon. I am ashamed, but that is totally my attitude.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, Miaca, as Peps was reading that, I thought of you. I was like looking at you going like, I think you're gonna resonate.
Oh yeah, big time. It's the attitude. It's like I don't feel like swimming, but like my favorite food is where it is, and like it's just chaos. Like yeah.
Miaca's
like,
the dragon door
this.
dashing her food to her.
Yes. Adam's editing this and he's probably just slowly shaking his head. But yeah, topaz. I actually also like the green one. I feel like the green one is so chaotic, so mean, but like would be like a lot of fun to play as a DM, you know, because of that manipulative nature and they're just here to play mind games. I love that.
I think I would like to dig into the gem dragons overall more. I didn't really know too much about them, but I like that it's the shift a little bit to different types of like breath weapon and just a little bit different. So I like them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you can't tell from my Tiamat shirt that I'm currently wearing. I like the chromatic dragons the best.
Fair.
Yeah.
I generally absolutely agree.
All right. Casey, was there anything else that inspired you or that you want to learn more about?
Well, when we talk about the we went through all the different dragons. I know it was dragons, wyverns, drakes, wormlings, all the things. But like we do see a lot of movies and books where humans or creatures ride dragons. And so I'm curious what you think about that in terms of D&D, Peps.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the dragon.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't think a red dragon is going to let you ride it.
Or they'll be like, sure, and then just fly up and like drop you off the back.
Yeah. There is an instance in Icewind Dale. There is an ancient white dragon that has a wizard rider on him. So like that tells us it is possible to ride a dragon. But I think it has to be a very special circumstance. And you're not gonna just find a dragon and be like, I'm gonna ride that. No, honey, you're not. Like
Me.
there's gotta be a reason. Even with like the lore of Dragonels, like they are mounts that your characters can have, but like you have to raise that from an egg. Like you have to raise that Dragonel to be able to have that connection to ride it. If you find a Dragonel in the wild, they're not letting you ride it, right? So I think it is possible. I think it is under extreme circumstances, and I think it very much depends on the dragon and the type of dragon.
Fair.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else that anyone wants to add before we close this out?
I guess I would like to know more information about the dragons that are just walking around pretending to be like humans.
Yeah.
Like, what's that all about?
We didn't really touch a whole lot on, there is the interesting part that chromatic dragons rules as written don't change. They cannot polymorph or shapeshift. There is a section in Fizban's that sort of says, well, you are the DM. If you find a reason that this is possible for your chromatic dragon, then let it fly. But that is a question I get a lot. I get a lot of questions in my DMs about dragons from people who want help creating them for their campaigns and that. And so I think that's a thing not a lot of people like know or understand, that chromatic dragons rules as written don't change, but metallic and gem and a lot of the other ones do. And I think part of that is because chromatic dragons aren't really wanting to be part of society, whereas metallic and gems do. Like chromatic dragons want to come in and conquer, and they do it by force. And like metallic dragons want to be trusted by the people. So their dragon form is maybe a little scary for people to come across. So they will shapeshift into a humanoid to be able to actually talk to the people in the village, is how I sort of see that. And like why chromatics can't, but metallics can. So that's my 2 cents on it. Anyways.
That helps to know when to put that in, though, and when it makes sense and when it doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And it like very much depends on the dragon and their intentions and that kind of thing. I mean, really like anything. It depends on the dragon because they are all so very different. So you have to know their motivations before you have them do anything to make it make sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. All right. So at the top, I asked you what your favorite dragon was. And I was going to ask what dragon you feel like you are now that we have went over them, and we know that Miaca now identifies with Topaz.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sit back. That is me.
Yeah. So, Casey, what dragon do you identify with the most? Now that we've went over.
I know. I do like personal relatability. It's the chromatic ones. Like it's like, okay, like they're pretty great. I would love to say that I am a brass like extrovert dragon. I am absolutely not. But like the silver dragon has a really like nice, I like the idea of the silver dragon and the peace and kind of engagement with maybe changing some perspective on knights and heroes that are coming to destroy dragons. It's like, hey, wait.
We're not all bad.
Yeah. So I can absolutely respect chromatic dragons, as Miaca would say. And maybe the silver dragon. I'd like to spin that out a little more.
Yeah. My answer is always, well, black dragons are my absolute favorite. I am not a black dragon. I am 100% a brass dragon.
Yes, I believe you.
Yeah, like I've said before, like they collect the sentient items as like part of their treasures or hoards or whatever, so they always have someone to talk to. And I'm like, that's why I have an Instagram, so that I have friends I can always talk to. That's why, like, on my Instagram, I'll post a picture and say, "Happy weekend, my dragons." Like, that's my hoard. I hoard friends, and people I can talk to.
I love that.
Yes, we love that about you.
Yeah. But final thoughts: dragons are awesome. Use them, read them. Definitely look into them more, and stay tuned because we're gonna cover a lot more.
Oh yeah,
only the beginning.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining Pepperina, Miaca, and I today and supporting It's a Mimic. We hope you were thoroughly entertained and inspired.
Yeah.
That's all for this episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Please take a second to engage with a like, follow, subscribe, comment, or review to help push our engagement. Thanks for listening to the It's a Mimic podcast, where you never know what you're gonna get.
This week on the It's a Mimic channel, you've got this episode, the Intro to Dragons, and on the Patreon, Miaca and I prepare to discuss the Greyhawk Pantheon by first discussing the campaign setting, themes, and vibes. And patrons know that we released yet another Legend Lore Online episode yesterday, and that makes 3 episodes in 3 weeks. So, now that we're done another dragon episode, let's talk about traps, because every good dragon has multiple layers and every good layer has multiple traps. Remember that good traps support the suspension of disbelief, which means that they have to make sense and they have to work within the boundaries and established logic of your campaign. For unique traps, I tend to look to the 2001 publication from Fantasy Flight Games called Traps and Treachery. It was designed with 3.5 in mind, but we know that just means that the numbers are high and the details are crunchy, and I feel like most dragons would appreciate that. For this episode, I've decided to look at the Devilish Dungeon Double Slide. The Devilish Dungeon Double Slide is one of the mechanical traps that's listed in the book Traps and Treachery. It's essentially a pit with a slide in it. It's got some complexity to it though, because there's a trap door and then a secret wall and then a couple of pressure plates. So let me get into it. First of all, you have a standard pit trap, which will drop a player 20 feet if they don't pass a relatively high dexterity save. For the record, I'm translating all of this into our current edition because, well, I don't need to tell you guys that the search DC is 27. No one's going to do that now. So it takes about 3 weeks to build and takes about 3,000 gold pieces to do, but the idea is you need a corridor or an underground layer perfect for dragons where interlopers and intruders might be trespassing. When there's 100 pounds or more put on this trap door, it swings open, dropping whoever is on top of it down a fairly decently sized shaft, where they will fall for 20 feet before hitting a slope and sliding. About halfway down the slide, there's a pressure plate, and when the weight is put on this pressure plate, there is a secret door that shifts and moves and swings closed so that the next person that falls isn't going to be able to fall down the same slope. It's going to find a different slope. So imagine that there's just a flap made of wood going to the left and to the right, and to the left and to the right every time someone falls down. Every one of these chutes, and you can have multiple slides here, every one of them is going to have a pressure plate which is going to swap this secret door, this hidden hatch, back and forth to a new position to push the next person down into another location. So you want to drop about 20 feet. When you hit the slide, that's 2d6 damage. Then you're going to tumble for 20 feet. and land again. So you need about 40 feet of height, though. That's what we're dealing with here. And when you land into whatever room is, because it was at a slope, you're going to take fall damage again, but it's only going to be 1d6 because that's half of the 20 feet. Normally it's 1d6 per 10 feet, but we'll do it like that. When they land, they should come through some sort of hatch that slams shut and locks behind them. This shouldn't be a problem necessarily for a rogue, but everyone else should have a problem. The genius of this is that if you add a little bit of grease or oil to it, people are going to go careening down, out of control, and not be able to stop themselves. And also, you are finally going to get to do that thing that every party wants to not do, and that is split the party. You've dropped them now onto a lower floor, and not necessarily into a cell, but into an area where they're not familiar with. And this is going to be a more dangerous, a deadlier space, especially because they're not using their safety in numbers anymore. So, again, this is the Devilish Dungeon Double Slide. I think you can use multiple shoots here. It's my own homebrew to add that little bit of oil and grease to make it so that they can't stop themselves or slow down. And this is all going to happen very, very quickly. And the people above that didn't fall are going to look down and see that there's an angle, a chute, but they're going to go the wrong direction. And they're not going to be able to communicate. If you want to be really, really nasty, you make the falls a little bit longer so that we can get outside of the area of message and do a little bit more damage. I think this is really effective, it's really fun, and for me, it screams something like a intelligent and nasty green dragon. You put spikes at the bottom to make it a black dragon, or you put a big old whoopee cushion there and make it a copper dragon, because they love pranks. There's lots of opportunities here, but now that we've set up another trap for our players, I wanted to ask you, what monster or minion do you think would pair nicely with the Devilish Dungeon Double Slide? If you'd like to support us, we have a store with some merch and a donate button on our website, itsamimic.com. You can also head to itsamimic.com to find a comprehensive episode guide and more information about the show. We do have a Patreon, which not only offers access to our exclusive Discord server, but also hosts over 100 episodes, including a variety of bonus episodes covering topics like 5th edition book reviews and the campaign builder, spells and gods, fae, homebrew inspiration, and even the Blood War. If you'd like to submit any mailbag questions, please reach out to us through any of the social media links in the show notes of this episode, or send us an email at info@itsamimic.com. This has been an episode of It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.